Those who came out to tonight's Columbia County School Board meeting, it's our first time meeting in place in quite a while, and I must say I'm glad that we are. Before we start tonight's meeting, I'd like to read our mission statement, and that is that above all else, we are committed to the creation of a safe and understanding environment for all students and staff while providing a world-class education. We'll now go into our invocation and our Pledge of Allegiance that I'd like to ask our superintendent to lead us in. Mr. Carswell.
Let us pray. Our gracious Heavenly Father, Lord, we just thank you for tonight. We thank you, Lord, that we can gather and conduct the business of the school children of Columbia County. We thank you for the parents and all those involved in our system, and the students and the staff that we have, Lord, and our board members. And we just pray that you bless us and just continue to lead and guide us and help us to make the right decisions that are the right thing for the students in Columbia County. We just pray all these in Jesus' name. Amen. Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Carswell. Once again, I'd like to welcome our visitors out this evening. And before we move on to our agenda items and our closing and adopting the agenda, I'd like to see if we have any member of the public who would like to comment on an action item that is on the agenda this evening. Seeing no one coming forward, board members will now move on to closing and adopting the agenda. And Mr. Carswell has let me know we will be making a change. We'll be removing consent agenda item A, attachment B, number 7, Meridian Behavioral Healthcare Cooperative Agreement, from tonight's agenda. So that one removal. Is there any other change, Mr. Carswell?
That's on the addendum if you're looking for it. And then, yes, we need to amend the school resource Columbia County Sheriff's Office contract. That's 7. It's on the addendum as well. We just need to amend to put the new start dates for school in there. Donna will change it, and we'll get with Judy to change the contract. But it has in their school starting on August 10th, and now school starting on August 24th, and it had school ending on May 26th, and now school ends on June 4th. So we just need to reflect those in the agreement before y'all approve it tonight.
Okay. Board members will make those changes.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to close and adopt the agenda with the addendum items.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to close and adopt tonight's agenda with the addendum and changes. Any further comments? All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, like sign. And the motion carries. First item of business tonight is a public hearing on the tentative millage for the 2020-2021 fiscal year. And to do that, we have to temporarily close our school board meeting and open this public hearing. So I'll hereby close our meeting and open a public hearing on the tentative millage for the 2020-21 fiscal year. I'll read everything here. Item A, sub A, is adopt the tentative required local effort of 3.781 mils for 2020-2021, and adopt tentative basic discretionary of a 0.748 mil for 2020-2021, and adopt tentative local capital outlay improvement of 1.5 mils for 2020-2021. Do we have any member of the public that would like to come forward to discuss the public hearing on tentative millage for 2020-2021?
Mr. Chair, would it be appropriate for Bonnie to do a presentation briefly right now, or would you rather have it after you close the public forum?
We can do it now. That'd be fine. Ms. Penner, if you'd like to come on up, we'll do it during the public.
That way, if someone wants to talk, they can after.
Absolutely. They'd be more informed. That's a good idea.
Thank you. I just wanted to go over a few things with the budget. As you can see, and you just mentioned, on the agenda tonight is the approval of the tentative millage rates and the tentative budgets. And in all my time, this is the most tentative I've ever seen a budget. So we will just go through it with that in mind. So as Mr. Nelson read, we have our discretionary and capital outlay millages. I'm going to talk about those just because those stayed the same. We are allowed by law to levy up to 0.748 mils of discretionary operating millage and the positive about advertising and levying that particular mill is because we are a smaller county and we're not as property rich as others, the state kicks in some dollars and pulls us up to the mid-range so that we make about the same with this as other districts make per FTE. Capital outlay has been 1.5 mills for the last several years. I'll talk about that in just a little bit. And our required local effort is exactly that. It is required to be levied in the exact amount by law in order for us to get the state tax dollars that make up the FEFP program. The required local effort has been decreasing over the last 10 or so years. This year it is 3.781 mills, which is down just about 2.2 mills from what it was last year. So taxpayers, provided their property values have not changed, they'll see about a $20 decrease in their taxes because our required local effort has decreased. The taxable value in Columbia County is $3.3 billion, which is an increase of about 6.78%. Last year we had about an 8.5% increase in our taxable value. Those were some of those big constructions. I believe last year Target Distribution Center finally came on the tax roll. This year I imagine some of the building out by the interstate came on the tax roll. So we're really happy to see that. We like to see when that kind of new construction creates some additional revenues for the school district, which really this is going to assist with our capital projects fund because, of course, as we mentioned, the required local effort is set and it's been decreasing. And just to let you see sort of a visual of what's happened over the last 12 years, I think I've got up here, 12, 13 years, the property values in Columbia County since about 13, 14 have slowly risen the last couple of years, more so than they have in the past. So you can see off to the right, the thick bar shows where the total taxable value in Columbia County is. And then the line represents the required local effort that has been levied by the school district. And again, this is something that's set forth by the legislature. So this year we're at an all-time low of 3.781 mills. The high point was in the 2010-11 year where we levied 5.414 mills of required local effort. So there's a 1.6 mil decrease that we've seen over the past 10 years in what we've been levying to our local taxpayers. This is, I'm not going to say a whole lot about this. We talk about this several times a year. It is the calculation of the FEFP, the Florida Educational Finance Program. And this is where, when we talk about things being tentative, this is very tentative. The forecast showed that we would see an increase in FTE. That's very unlikely to happen this year. Part of that is an increase based on our ESE students, some of the highly weighted students. And again, we've seen some of those folks pull back out. So where it looks as though we'd be receiving about $1.2 million, primarily based on growth, that's likely not to happen. So then some of the other bits and pieces that make up the FEFP program, you know, you can see there's some that increased and some that decreased. The ones that are highlighted in green in the middle are what we call categoricals, and those are restricted, very restricted in use. So I usually pull those out of the total dollars we receive because we can't use them as we need to use them. If the electric bills come up, we can't use the Safe Schools dollars to pay the electric bills. So when we're looking at what's available for the board to do special programs, raises, anything like that, we need to pull those out. You can see that the largest of those, the very top line in the green box, the best and brightest, that program was terminated this year. We got about $1 million from that program last year, and really they just shuffled it into the last line in that green box, the teacher salary increase, which we are slated to get 1.622 million for the teacher salary increase. We need about double that if we wanted to get our classroom teachers up to 47.5. So just long way to go on that, but just to let you know. So through the FEFP program, we've got a total increase of 1.7, almost $1.8 million. When we start pulling out some of the things that we know are going to happen, we actually have a decrease that we're having to deal with. Belmont is slated to increase their student population, and that's about $550,000 that they will get out of this FEFP program. And I'll talk about it on the next slide. The Florida retirement system rates have gone up significantly. We haven't had this kind of rate increase in several years, and that's going to cost $670,000 or so. When this was being developed, a lot of folks did some calculations that appear consistent here. The base student allocation went up $40 per student, so which is a wonderful thing, but the increase in FRS costs us over $70 per student. So this is where we get a little upside down in this FEFP formula. We've got some other cost increases. Again, FRS is up, our risk management insurance is up slightly, and we've got an odd situation of overlap with the phone bills. If you remember, we went to the VoIP system several years ago because we were losing our E-rate funding on our regular telephone lines, whereas we get funding for the VoIP way of happening. So we had to buy new phones, and there's a lease. So this kind of is the last year of the lease, and the least little bit of E-rate funding that we're going to get to support some of that. So it just caused a budget hole, a little bit of a budget shortfall this year. And of course, we have to back out the growth. That's the last one. That growth, when you back it out of some of the other line items, is a little over $1 million. That would be wonderful if we got those students, but it's highly unlikely, especially with what we're seeing today. So again, this is very tentative in the amount that we expect to receive through the FEFP program. We have some other budget issues. On the left, you'll see some of the negative impacts. I mentioned the FRS increase. I wanted to show you the amount so you can see just for our regular employees, we got about a 1.5% increase in the rates, and then the drop employees went up a little more than 2%. I mean, that's flat out raise money right there. So if we had enough money in the bank to give a 1.5% raise, that's exactly where it went, is to the FRS increase. Some other revenue sources that we have to deal with this year. Interest earnings have decreased from about $20,000 a month we had been earning to now about $10,000 a month we're earning. So about $120,000 annually that we're going to see a cut there. Medicaid, we talked about that a little bit, but we have the unusual situation where Q2, which is usually our biggest quarter, we were shut down the full quarter. So it's hard to earn the dollars that we would normally get for our Medicaid administrative claiming. The Department of Health cut our funding to support our nursing program. That was an $82,000 cut. And we saw a slight increase in dual enrollment. Again, back to the idea that this budget is somewhat tentative. Right now, these are changing almost daily. So we all know that as a teacher at the top of the pay scale retires, and if we are able to replace with a beginning teacher, we realize some savings. At the point the tentative budget was developed, we had seen about $237,000 in savings due to that, but we're still working on getting the experience verified for a lot of the new teachers, so that's going to change, as well as additional retirements that are coming in. We've held several teaching positions, savings of about $661,000, and we've held quite a few non-instructional positions at this point. So these, as it stands right now within the tentative budget, make up for the other losses that we've got. This is the tightest budget I've ever put together, but I believe if you look at the tentative budget, we had revenues that exceeded expenditures by about $250. And this, you know, in an $80 million budget, that's pretty tight. But it's changing, so we just have to keep our eye on it. That's the general fund. As I mentioned, I wanted to talk a little, the capital outlay. Mr. Hudson had asked at our last meeting about the loss of PICO dollars and what impact that has had on our capital program. And just to show you, back 15 years ago, we were able to levy 2 mills in capital outlay, and you can see we were getting quite a few dollars from the PICO program, all for maintenance and construction. The most we ever received through these 2 programs was in the 7-8 year. That's highlighted. You can see we received 6.8, almost $6.9 million to support our maintenance and construction remodeling type programs. This year we have levied the 1.5 mills, and we levied just a little over $5 million. Of course, we receive a little bit less in collections than that, but still that was the levy. No PICO maintenance, no PICO new construction. So there's a pretty big difference in what we're getting. We're having to do an awful lot with a lot less money in our construction accounts. And then finally, we've been getting some questions about the CARES Act. We have submitted budgets for the 2 funding opportunities that are available through the CARES Act. On the left is the GEARS grant, the Governor's Emergency Education Relief Grant. Of course, off the top of that, we have to allow the private schools to participate. They are going to receive $9,000 of those dollars. And what's remaining, we have 2 programs slated. The first was we ramped up our summer school programs, expanded them, and also have some additional cleaning, some additional nurses, and transportation that went along with those programs. The rest will be to fund some more after-school tutoring as we finish out this school year. The second grant is the Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief Grant, just a little over $2.5 million that we are allocated out of this. And this is the grant that is going to have to be very flexible, because there's a lot of different things to do with this money, and it's going to be very different depending on whether most of our kids are actually on campus. Then we're going to need to spend more money on cleaning and PPE and staff to help with social distancing and all of that, versus if we have a lot of students that take the virtual option, then we would need to instead shift these dollars to help us better educate kids through a different learning management system. So as with the GEAR, funds had to be allocated for private and charter schools, so that was $350,000. And then again, we've got some pretty broad categories with the hopes that we can be very flexible moving forward, depending on how the students are, who's in attendance versus who we need to support virtually. We only have $41,000. I want to mention this at the bottom, the line item for, this is the district's portion of cleaning supplies. We have already spent well over $100,000 on cleaning supplies, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. We are very hopeful that we will get some funding from the county's CARES money, as well as 75% reimbursed through FEMA. FEMA's a difficult beast to manage, so we're very, very hopeful. But, if FEMA doesn't step up and help us out like we hope they are, that number is going to change significantly, because that's only the 12.5% match to what we're expecting the entire cleaning scenario to look like. So again, this ESSER portion, it's a lot of money, but when you've got 14 schools and charter and privates that you're sharing with, it goes very quickly, but the grant was written to be very flexible. Both of these have been submitted, and we're pending approval with the Department of Education. And that's my formal presentation. Do we have any questions?
Mr. Chair.
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Penner, I actually have a couple of questions. I know you said the funding, I want to clarify this, the funding that we're hoping to get from the county and FEMA, that's been submitted. Is that correct? Is that what you're saying?
The FEMA and the counties, we've discussed a little bit of it with the county. I shouldn't say a little bit of it. We've had discussions with the county, and we've started we're working with the FEMA process. It's a very different process than what we normally do with FEMA to get reimbursed for shelter operations. But our focus, as it is right now, has been on getting these grants approved, and our next step will be working with FEMA.
And you said it was pending. Is there a date that you expect that we may hear about this?
No,
or
FEMA, again,
anything?
FEMA is a whole different beast. They do have a different program where they're actually, instead of reimbursing you for supplies now, if you have a certain dollar amount, which we will, they will give you the money in advance. So that's a very positive thing, because otherwise FEMA can take years under regular circumstances to get the money. So just we're working on that. It's just we're not there yet. This was the priority, this grant.
Mr. Chair.
Are you through, Ms. Pennell? Or, excuse me, Ms. Jones?
Thank you.
If you don't mind, I want to address something that you just raised. I want to point out to everybody that the county commissioners are working with us out of the goodness of their heart. There's no obligation on their part to work with us to try to help offset some of these costs. And so I just wanted to point that out to the public and to everybody up here that there is no time frame for them. They have a deadline, but we're working with Ben Scott and the county commissioners and all to try to help out where they can. Just wanted to point that out. And everything else Monty said was absolutely accurate. But the county commissioners, I don't want anybody to leave here thinking the county commissioners owe us anything. They do not. They're trying to help us out of the goodness of their heart, and we appreciate it. That's all.
Very much.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Mr. Jones.
And I agree, Mr. Carswell, we do appreciate the county working with us and the county commissioners. The other question, and I'll be done, I think. You did say that we held several teaching positions and non-instructional positions. Typically around this time of year, and I think Mr. Carswell might have to answer this one too, but typically around this time of year, we're concerned with a shortage of teachers. So can you give me just give everyone a little update about where we stand with this and
Yes.
how things go from there?
We're holding a lot of positions, probably more so than what's listed here. Every day, we make decisions whether they're critical need and have to be replaced. Right now, critical need positions for instructional would be guidance counselors, a singleton-type teacher that might be a calculus teacher or an AP teacher, or chorus or music at a school that we have. Those people we would hire, because we have to have those. Those that we're looking at not replacing right off the bat would be, and I know this is going to sound drastic, but a third grade teacher, fourth grade kindergarten, Algebra 1 teacher, world history teacher, teachers that we have large volumes of students trying to take those, because we may have to move some people around in our district if the students choose a different category to come to school on August 24th besides brick and mortar. So we are replacing people, but we're not replacing people like we normally have. Now, to answer your second part of your question is, I'm very happy to report that we're having new employee, I started to say new student, new employee orientation in the morning, and we probably got 15 or 20 new employees coming on board. I'm very happy to report that we've got 7 or 8 paras that have shifted from the para ranks and got their degree and are coming to work for us, having come through the system and starting as teachers tomorrow. And so we're building kind of from within. I'd also say that this is the fewest number of out-of-field teachers we've ever hired. So that tells me we've got people out there that are wanting to come in the education field. So I think we're going to be okay. If we have to hire new people later on in a week or two, and we work on this daily. But if we have to hire more teachers in a week or two, I think we're going to be in better shape this year than in years past, simply because there seems to be a better a higher volume of teachers, not only a higher volume, but a higher volume of certified teachers.
And we're not cutting back on any of our ESC
No, ma'am,
teachers.
absolutely not. We would, no, ma'am, that would never happen.
Yes, sir, Mr. Hudson.
Would you put that last chart back up there again?
With the,
The very last one you had up there. Yeah,
so the CARES?
the additional staff and equipment to aid community social justice.
While you're mulling this over, Mr. Hudson, and everybody's looking at, we're waiting on DOE's approval on both of these categories. We've got tentative approval on the gear because that's summer school, and so we're pretty good shape there. The ESSER, we're kind of waiting on. They've given us some nods of approval on it, but they just haven't given us the stamp of approval yet.
But it looks like a sure thing.
Yeah, yes, sir. Yes, sir. It's one of those DOE allocations, grants that you apply for, that you write a grant to submit the money into these categories, but you normally get it unless it's something way out there in left field. None of these are way out in left field that we feel like. And they've kind of looked at it and said it's pretty good. They just haven't, I don't know what you call it, just given it the final approval yet.
Well, on the $41,000, you said we've spent well over $100,000 on that. And was that where we were expecting to get FEMA money from?
Yes, exactly. So with the things like, I don't know if you've seen the foggers that we've bought and some of the other things like we're retrofitting I'm talking way out of my league here. We're retrofitting the water fountains so that they're bottle fillers, and a lot of that different type of stuff is at least, from what I've seen shown on the FEMA approved listing, that we should be able to get some assistance with. It's just a matter of, again, their process is the worst.
Well, they've usually been and known for being really slow. And you say that they're going to upfront some of this money?
That is the process that they have put out for these COVID-19 related costs, that they have this prepayment as long as you're going to apply for $131,000 or more, that they will pre-fund the application.
On the unreserved fund balance, you just want to give us a brief on that? I mean, how we're doing on that, where we expect to be with this very tentative budget?
Right, well, and so last year is being closed out, so when you get the final budget on September 8th, you'll also be getting the financial statements where we'll have all of this pulled together. I think we're going to be right about where we need to be with the $4.8 or so million, which is right around 6% of revenues, so hanging tight where we are. We had some positives in things, some one-time things, not operating buses. We had some fuel savings. Utilities looked a little bit better, but then on the other hand, we had some additional folks that, some positions that had insurance that didn't used to have insurance, so we had some additional costs there. We didn't have a meeting where I discussed the fourth calculation of the FEFP, and we lost about $150,000 there. So, we had a little bit of both, and I'll be talking about that then. But our fund balance held pretty much where we need to be. Yeah. I'm at that point where I'm not worried. I'm not worried that we've had a huge dip, but I haven't got everything in to where I can pinpoint it.
Thank
Sorry.
Any other questions?
No, I was just going to, Mr. Hudson, I'm having a hard time hearing you down here.
Well, I was talking directly to her. I'm
Well.
sorry. We were having our own
Thank you.
conversation.
All right, do we have any member of the audience that would like to ask a question regarding this public hearing on tentative millage? We're in the tentative millage portion of this public hearing. We're not in the budget at this point. Would you please state your name for the record, please?
Rick Mattern's my name.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. I live in District 1, and I'm on the school advisory committees, or was, for 5 Points and for Lake City Middle School. And I was just curious to ask our professional that was at the lectern, staff, the 3.781 mills that this legislature requires you to have this year, do you have the option of retaining the previous year's millage? Or do they require you to lower it? Because if we save $20 a piece as taxpayers and we have a $250 difference between, spending and allocations, then wouldn't it make sense to retain that at the old rate?
It does make sense. However, the legislature does set that rate, and as you said, we are required to levy it to the exact amount that they give us. We cannot change that. If we were to want to change, and again, levy something different, we would have to go get voter approval. So for the required local effort, we are only allowed to levy that exact amount.
Well, so is the ostensible idea that because tax revenue went up, not substantially, but somewhat, that they lower the millage level to compensate for supposed increase in available tax dollars, but then it just becomes more of a deficit or evens out, and there's no net increase in budgetary finances for the school board? Is that?
You're living my nightmare. I've been in it for 20 years.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
fought
it's
that one. I would love to bring in some more money. They don't give us that option.
Yeah.
Now, we could go before the electorate and say we want to add a point, 0.25 mil or 1 mil or whatever, and try to get that approved. But that's the only way you can do it. Through this way, the state doesn't give us the option to change it. I
Okay,
wish
well,
they did.
I'm sad to hear that, because that'd be quite a big difference. And what's not on millage, but Angela Witt was very valuable in Title I at Lake City Middle School, and I don't know if she's been replaced or not, but she was the only person that we had as a liaison for information for anything going on last year. Not anything, but for emails and text messages about important things having to do with Lake City Middle School. And I would praise any effort to try to replace her as soon as possible, because we've been struggling to find out what's going on. I just learned from my 13-year-old that we're not starting school till the 24th. I'm embarrassed to say. And I don't get the Lake City Reporter, and I don't use Facebook. So just props to Ms. Witt. She's retired, and she was an excellent person and professional. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have anybody else from the audience that would like to ask a question regarding the public hearing on tentative millage? All right, seeing no one coming forward, we'll now close the public hearing on the tentative millage for 2020-2021 fiscal year. And board members, I'll now accept a motion on A, sub A, B, and C.
Mr. Chairman, I move we adopt the tentative budget as outlined, A, B, and C.
Second.
All right, so we have a motion and a second, and I'm going to read these again so that we have it in the record completely. We have a motion and a second to adopt the tentative required local effort of 3.781 mils for 2020-2021, adopt the tentative basic discretionary of 0.748 mil for 2020-2021, and adopt the tentative local capital outlay improvement of 1.5 mils for 2020-2021. Are there any other discussion by the board on these items? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, like sign, and motion carries. We'll now open a public hearing on the tentative budget, which I believe Ms. Penner's already covered for us, but we need to do these in two public hearings. So public hearing on the tentative budget for 2020-2021 fiscal year. This public hearing is now open. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak regarding this item? Yes, sir.
One more general question. I'm curious as to whether the state legislature has ever approached, or whether there's been any idea to have an emergency session before October to kind of give us some guidance in the budget shortfalls that municipalities and school boards and everybody else is going to suffer as a result of this pandemic business. So that's just a general question.
I can kind of answer that a little bit, and if we go back to, what year did our recession kind of hit? Was that 08? 7, 8. In that year, they didn't come back in October and tell us that it was going to hurt us. They came back 3 times during the year and took money back. So that's my worry for this upcoming year is whatever budget we start off with is not going to be the one we end up with. And that hurts in the middle of the year when they come and tell you you're not going to get $1 million. But that's my suspicion is what we're going to get because the state's not bringing in the tax dollars we have. And I can't foresee, maybe they're going to pull money out from somewhere I don't know about, but with the extra money they're putting in for the teacher raises this year, which I fully support, but at the same time, it's kind of an interesting year to put more money in when we're going to try to survive, or at least put it into that category. But we'll see how it turns out. Comments on any other board member regarding that? All right, well now, seeing no one else move forward, we'll close the public hearing on the tentative budget, and we'll now reopen our regular meeting, and board members, I'll accept a motion to adopt.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to adopt the public hearing on the tentative budget of 2020 to 2021 fiscal year.
Second.
That's the budget, not the hearing, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right, just want to make sure. All right, we have a motion and a second to adopt tentative budget for 2020, 2021. Any comment from the board? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, like sign. The motion carries. Our action item tonight is only the approval of personnel. I don't think there was anything else on the addendum.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, there was.
Yes, on the addendum, there's an action item for the approve the Florida Optional Innovative Plan from Florida Department of Education.
Thank you. I didn't see that one, but I see it now. So we'll do action on A first. This is the personnel items before you this evening. Mr. Superintendent, is everything in order on personnel?
Yes, it is.
What's the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chair, I make a motion to approve the personnel items on the agenda and the addendum.
Second.
We have a motion to approve the personnel items, both the action item and the addendum. Any questions or comments from the board? Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, like sign. Motion carries. The second action item season, item 6B, the approval of the Florida Optional Innovative Plan for Columbia County School District and Belmont Academy for 2020-2021. What's the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chair, may I?
You want to comment first? That's
Yes,
fine.
sir. I just want to, this is what, and I'm going to read this. We're asking you tonight to approve the Florida Department of Education's requirement to approve a Florida Optional Innovative Plan by DOE Order Number 2020 EO-06. This is the executive order that the governor or the commissioner, however you want to look at it, sent out to us and said that in order to get funding, the way that they're going to do funding this year, because they are talking about holding us harmless for our FTE count in October, but we had to come up with a plan on how we were going to start with brick and mortar by August 31st, 5 days a week, plus an innovative plan. And so this is our plan. It's more geared towards progress monitoring and how we're going to help our ESE students stay up with everybody else through this time than it is anything else. But Ms. Jernigan's got 3 or 4 very quick slides that she's going to go over if you would allow. Thank you, sir.
Give me a moment to transfer. Actually, you don't know. Where you see, oh, I see it now. Thank you, Patrick. All right, everyone. Good afternoon, good evening. We are going to go ahead and go through our quick little presentation about the innovative plan for reopening. The full plan that you have in your packet tonight has a couple of errors because we did change our date for school start. So that adjustment will be made. You will receive a new copy, and the new copy will be added to the school board website. But as Mr. Carswell said, Executive Order 2020-E006, released by Governor DeSantis, mandated that we have 5 days a week at least, which we thought was interesting, brick and mortar schools to be open, and which we were already planning on that at the time that the emergency executive order, came out. Districts and charter schools have to offer the full panoply, that's a new vocabulary word, wide array of services required by law for all students, and we will get into those in the next couple of slides with the assurances. So on July 6th, FLDOE released requirements for the innovative reopening plan for each district, including all assurances that must be met. So we will take a good look at those next. So assurance 1, all schools have traditional settings open by August reopening time. Assurance 2, the full array of services for students with IEPs, ELL students, homeless students, foster care students, students of migrant worker parents, and low-income families. And with that being said, we have always provided services for all of these students, and we would continue to do that no matter what we are doing, as long as the students are in our school system. Assurance 3, provision of robust progress monitoring. Assurance 4, determination of compensatory services for students who have IEPs. And those compensatory services would always be developed as a part of an IEP team committee. It would be based on progress monitoring that we do at the beginning of the year, data analysis, and the determination of the need. Assurance 5, ELL committees will be used to determine the needs of ESOL students to ensure that their rights are being met and that they receive the services that they need. Assurance 6 goes back to progress monitoring and how that data will be shared with FLDOE. And last but not least, the flexibility in instructional methods should be extended to charter schools as well. As a part of your packet, you also have the plan for Belmont Charter School. So our innovative plan in Columbia County is Columbia Homeroom. It is a virtual option which is going to be offered through Google Classroom for families who are not comfortable at this time with sending their children to the brick and mortar setting. Students will be provided instruction by Columbia County teachers following our current instructional planning guides and utilizing our scope and sequence that we already have in place. The same instructional materials that are used in the classroom will also be offered to students through Columbia Homeroom. Students will have virtual meetings with teachers, access to pre-recorded lessons, small group meetings, and frequent communication will happen with parents. There are a lot of different ways that teachers are able to provide access to learning that's happening in the classroom. We're looking at video recording the lessons. However, we are also talking about having live lessons that teachers are putting on in the classroom with live students, but we can provide access to those kids that are staying at home. And teachers will have scheduled office hours and specific planning times, and the teachers who are working in Columbia Homeroom will be working in the building, just like normal. So, like I said, it's quick. If you have questions, you can send me an email or give me a phone call. Thank you.
May I ask you a question?
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Smith?
The options, the parents have been given the option of Columbia Homeroom or brick and mortar.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, when is that deadline?
We are aiming to have all of that sealed by this Friday. A lot of the schools have been making phone calls, and this is something that if you guys and anybody else that's here can help us with getting the word out. If the schools are calling, we need people to answer the phones because they are trying to lock down the right number of kids into each one of those options. Right now, we are looking at about 60 to 65%, depending on the day, because this is changing daily, that are supposed to return back to the brick and mortar setting. 30 to 35% are looking at going into the Columbia homeroom, and the last marginal piece is looking at the Florida virtual option or homeschooling. That is still up in the air, and as we keep telling, the teachers, the principals, and everyone else, we really won't know till the day that we walk into the school. So August 24th, we'll start to be able to get a really good picture on who's coming back.
I have a question.
I have one other.
Excuse me,
Go
Ms.
ahead.
Smith.
I'm sorry,
One
Ms.
other
Smith.
question. I have quite a few parents who have contacted me, and they are asking questions about the Columbia homeroom, or the options that are there. Now, if they are, the best person for me to refer them to would be to Hope Jernigan or to the principal of that particular school that they're zoned to.
They first would need to speak with the principal because the setup might look a little bit different from school A to school B. But they can always call me. I've spoken to several parents already, and every day there's more questions. A lot of the questions they come back to, always, they have come back to safety. What are we doing to ensure the safety of the students? And so that's some of the, I think that changes some people's minds once the principals are able to talk to the parents and say, this is what my cafeteria schedule is going to look like. This is what it's going to look like in the classroom. And we're working on some, I don't like to call it publicity, but ways to show people what we've done, especially with elementary folks. They need to see it, and they haven't been able to come to the schools yet. And so that's something we're working on. So they can, by all means, call me, but I would prefer that they start with their principal, and then they can call me if they have more questions, and I do not mind at all talking to them.
Yeah, thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome.
Ms. Giddens.
This may be a question that you can't answer until you know how many kids you have on campus, but I'm just curious, when teachers who are working and they have a live classroom, a classroom full of students, are they going to have Columbia homeroom students and students in person that they deal with? Or are you going to have dedicated teachers to just Columbia homeroom and then teachers dedicated to brick and mortar? Do you know yet how that's going to look?
We really don't know yet, simply because of the fluctuation in numbers. I will say that we have looked at both because of the fact that in secondary, and Mr. Whitaker, don't let me overstep, but in secondary, it might be a little bit different, depending on the type of course and the number of teachers. Like Mr. Carswell had mentioned earlier, you might have one teacher for AP Calculus in the district. That person might have to do a little bit of both. But that's something that we will have to keep addressing as we get closer to the start date.
That makes sense. Thank you.
If I might interject, Mr. Nelson, we have to be very careful. The state requires us to categorize how we're doing this, and if we categorize it into virtual, then we don't get paid unless they complete the program. So it's very dicey as to how we word what we're saying we're going to do, but I don't want anybody to leave here today to think we're going to have a kindergarten teacher has 12 kids in front of her and 6 at home that she's having to deal with all at one time. That's not going to happen. That's not the model at all. It will be different at elementary than it will be at secondary. We can't have a whole class of Columbia homeroom virtual kids, because then the state's going to kick those into, they have to complete the program to get paid. So we're going to work through the process, and parents need to call their principals and set up time to discuss it with them so that they know how each school is going to operate theirs. But we've gone over scenarios probably 1 million times the last month, and we're going to continue until we get it all worked out right. But it will be separate programs for secondary and elementary.
Mr. Chair.
Ms. Johnson.
I'm going to ask this question, Mr. Superintendent. Just to clarify for everybody, I think, not only myself, but as far as FTE, what you're saying is any student that is completing the virtual or Columbia homeroom?
No. Okay.
Back up.
Okay, yeah, if you don't mind. Okay, if we label the program a virtual program, they have to complete it. If we call it Columbia homeroom or brick and mortar, we will get paid according to the governor's executive order if our plan is approved based on what we submitted as our Bonnie, what do you call it, the projected enrollment. Back in the spring, we had to send in our projected enrollment, so they're going to pay us all the way through this first semester based on that projected enrollment, as long as we have brick and mortar and Columbia homeroom. If we start having a bunch of kids go into Florida virtual school, which we don't get paid for, they get it, but if we go into Columbia virtual, which we offer and have for years, then they will have to complete the program for us to get paid, so.
This also allows those kids to come, like if
Yes.
they're in Columbia homeroom and they want to come in back in the brick
That's
and
right.
mortar, they can.
That's a great point, and plus, it also allows a kid that's in the class that might get the virus to be able to go home and continue his work and not miss anything either. So it's a very fluid, but it's going to have to be worked out. We've never done this in 100 years of education. We've never had to do this, so we're working it out. I just want everybody to know that's out here and here, and even if they're listening on the stream, that we're working through this process, and we work hard on it every day. Hope's working with elementary and all the principals, many of them here. Todd's working with secondary. The programs are going to be in place on August 24th. They might not be the perfect program on August 24th, but we will work to make the best we can. And while I'm saying this, and I'm going to stop talking, we said back in March at a board meeting that our concern is not where a student's academic is today. Our concern is we want to get the student where he or she academically needs to be by May of 2021, because that's the next benchmark that they're either going to the next grade level or graduate. And so we're going to do everything we can to make sure every student in our district from March of last year to May of 2021 gets everything they need to be where they need to be, where they should have been if all this pandemic hadn't have started. So it's a fluid program. I think we've got a great program. I would encourage parents to come to brick and mortar, but if they don't feel comfortable doing that, I'd encourage them to try the Columbia homeroom.
Any other questions from the board?
Mr. Chair, I have one more.
Ms. Smith?
And I think this will go to Ms. Jernigan. During this summer, we've had a number of programs going on in the schools. Have we had quite a bit of participation?
The participation at the beginning, it kind of rode a wave. So we started off a little bit slower, started calling people, reminding them that programs that started, they started coming in again. I will say that as the numbers of cases in the community started to rise, then we start to see a decline. So that is a concern, and so we're tracking all of those. The protocols for the schools are in place. The principals have been practicing those very well, and they call us and let us know so that we're informed. But we did have decent in the first 2 weeks, and then it started to dwindle down again. Yes,
Thank you.
ma'am. You're welcome.
All right, board members, we need a motion on, where did I put my paper? 6B.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion to approve the Florida Optional Innovative Plan for Columbia County District and Belmont for the 2020-2021 school year.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, like sign, and the motion carries. Next item of business tonight is our consent agenda. And Mr. Superintendent, is everything in order on the consent agenda?
With the changes that we discussed earlier, they are in order.
Thank you for the reminder. What's the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chair, I move that we accept the consent agenda with the changes that have been announced.
All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and second to accept tonight's consent agenda with changes. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, like sign. Motion carries. We're at the point in our meeting tonight where we take citizens' requests. So if we have a citizen in the audience that would like to address the board, feel free. Please come to the mic and state your name.
Good evening. My name is Kyle Green. And I would like to bring before the board, I saw a memo that was released a couple days ago. It's concerned not only myself, but also a lot of other parents and individuals. I'm a parent myself. I have a fourth grader. And I saw where we're going to be mandating masks here in Columbia County. Is that a for sure thing right now, or is that something that's going to be talked about on the 13th? Do we,
If I may
have we already
address
voted
that.
on that, or?
If I may address that.
Yes, sir.
If
Mr.
that was my
Superintendent.
memo that you saw, that is something that I think a direction that we need to look at. I probably overstepped the bounds of saying it is a board policy. They're the only ones that can approve board policy. I did ask Ms. Logan to draft up a policy, and she did very quickly. We are going to work through the process of what that policy would look like over the next week, and it will be on the August 11th agenda.
Okay, so that's when people need to make public comment on that? and
I
stuff
would,
like
I
that?
would encourage people to email me their comments right now. I probably entertained 20 emails today, and we're taking this into consideration for everybody. What happened with the memo generated a lot of great discussion about it, but this is not a set stone. I would never paint our board into a corner where I thought they had to do something. And so
Right.
this is a very open process. They can come and speak on the 11th, just like you're doing tonight. I would encourage them to send me emails so that as we develop the process over the next 2 weeks, it reflects what the community is saying.
Okay, and I think people are really concerned because we all feel like, I mean, everyone knows that COVID-19 is very serious, right? You know, myself, I'm not saying that it's a bad idea to wear a mask, but what I'm saying is I think the school board members, you guys, it's your job to provide excellent, making sure that our students get the greatest education here in Columbia County, right? It's not your job to mandate that my child needs to wear a mask. That should be the choice of the parents. And I don't agree with government saying that I have to personally wear a mask. I don't agree with the school board saying that I have to make my child wear a mask. You know, like I said, my child is in 4th grade, and personally, I don't want my child to have to go to school every day wearing a mask, but that should be up to me. That should not be up to anyone on this board.
Right. And we hear you. I would say this, that the Columbia County Schools has 12,000 people and there's 71,000 people in Columbia County that live here. So roughly 18% of the people that live in our county go through our school system every day. So I agree with what I got to be careful how I word this. I understand what you're saying, but I also think it's our job to keep our county safe, our school safe. And when you have 18%, and that's just the people that go to school every day, that's not counting you. Like you would not be counted in that 18%.
Right.
The number is easily 25 to 30% of the people in Columbia County that are affected by people that go to school every day. All I'm saying, and all I asked her to do, and what we're going to address on August 11th, that let's look at it. Let's see what's the best way we can do to protect as many students and staff, and that's the other thing we got to talk about is our staff. We need to protect them as much as we can, because 30%, roughly 25 to 30% of this county is affected by what goes in our school system. So we're just trying to say we're going to look at it. And so I encourage, I appreciate what you're saying tonight. And if there's more people that want to echo your comments, that's okay. But emailing, and you can email all of us, but I would ask you to email me so that I can do the day-to-day operation side of trying to get it looked at.
And I mean, another thing for me is, I mean, if it's so important that we all wear masks and that our students wear masks, I mean, it just amazes me that no one here tonight is even wearing a mask. It's on the school board or even our superintendent.
Well, we had it on when we were walking in, and we have it on when we're not 6 feet apart, but I get what you're saying.
Okay, that's all I want to say.
Yes,
But
sir.
I appreciate you hearing me
No,
out. Thank you.
Yeah, we understand emailing, and that's a great tool to hear what you're saying, so
Okay,
thank you.
Thank you very much.
So, Michael Jenkins, District 4, and I just wanted to clarify for the board that I have a strong opinion on masks. I'm challenging Mr. Hudson for his position. My opinion on masks was stated last Wednesday on the radio, so I don't want this board to think that I saw the Lake City Reporter Saturday morning. I went to a rally Saturday night. I posted a Facebook message this morning that's got 4,500 views. So out of that, I'm not here to debate masks. I'm not here for it, against it, or whatever. I just want this board to know that my decisions were made before your comments were public. So thank you.
Do we have anyone else that'd like to speak to the board this evening? Seeing no one coming forward, we'll move on to our board member comments. Mr. Hudson.
Just wanted to thank Ms. Penner for her job on the budget. And not necessarily a comment, but a question, Mr. Gaylord, give us an update on some of our construction projects and how things look from your end of it. you know, as far as construction, yeah, you're the maintenance director, you do a good job, and you keep us up to date, make sure everything's ready.
I try to, Mr. Hudson, but board members, Mr. Superintendent, as Mr. Wintergren had shared with some of the staff at several of our meetings now, I was probably one of the few in Columbia County that we are actually suffering, that we're happy we were suffering through the COVID situation. It actually was an opportunity for us to have the possibility of meeting an objective that's been ours for years, and that's making tremendous improvements at Columbia High School, specifically with the commons restrooms that were in a bad condition for many years. We had the ability, the board approved a contract with a contractor. We went to work pretty quick, gained the benefit of several months of extra time to be able to work. And I can tell you that at present, we're putting the hard tile down in the restrooms. The soft tile and the carpet's going to be going in on tomorrow morning. The ceilings will be finished, and we'll be swinging doors next Monday. So we're very close. I'm actually thankful as well that the start date got moved back. It gave me a week's cushion to actually be completed at Columbia High, but I'm fairly certain that we'll be through in 2 weeks out there, and it'll be a construction project that the board will be very proud of. But it's going along real well, and we thank y'all for the support in it.
Well, thank you for the good job that you do.
Thank you.
Anything else, Mr. Hudson?
No, that's it.
Ms. Giddens?
Mr. Gaylord, thank you. You do such good work for us. Ms. Penner, well, thank you as well. I'm going to repeat that. I do want to also thank, I see Mr. Christie in the audience. When Ms. Jernigan was speaking about referring people to your principals so that they can answer questions, I've had several parents who've contacted me and I didn't know the answer. And Mr. Christie was very prompt in responding to those parents by phone and by email. One of them even sent me a very nice email saying how great he was and how fast he responded. So I appreciate you, Mr. Christie, for, you know, being able to answer the questions that I'm really not prepared at this point to answer. And you've stepped up and you've done that in a very quick and, quick way that has satisfied those parents. So I just wanted to give you a shout out for that. Other than that, I'm the senior parent president for the last year, the class of 2020. So I just want to remind all the board members that we are having baccalaureate Thursday at Christian Fellowship at 7 o'clock. And so administration, board members, you are invited to attend. That's it.
And graduation Friday night.
Yes.
Ms. Smith?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to take this opportunity to thank Ms. Penner, Ms. Jernigan, and to each and every one of you for your presentations. I also want to thank Mr. Whittaker. I had an opportunity to speak with him before the board meeting, and he was telling me how much he had met with the custodians to ensure that we are doing all we can to prepare the classrooms for the cleanliness for the upcoming year. And I know that's something that is on the minds and hearts of our parents. We just thank everyone who's working hard to ensure that we're doing all we can for the children. A big shout out to our superintendent and his leadership, and to all the parents who are out here who are trying to find out all they can for their children. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Johns?
I'm going to echo something Ms. Giddens said. Mrs. Jernigan, thank you very much for your hard work on the plan, and your email and phone is going to be blowing up. But yes, I too encourage, reach out to get the correct information, because as you know, anywhere, we get the hearsay, and we want the correct information. So thank you, Ms. Jernigan, for that. I know all of you, your emails are blowing up like ours, phones and so on. So thank you. But again, the same. I encourage everyone to reach out. And I'm not saying just to Ms. Jernigan, but our administration, us, whoever that maybe can help you. Because just like Ms. Giddens, if I can't answer it, I'm going to refer you to the person that can. And I want to thank Mrs. Penner. I know right now is a difficult time with the budget. there's not much to say, but thank you. Mr. Gaylord, always, thank you for your hard work. Principals, I know you have a lot on your hands right now, a lot going on. There's not a lot of concrete answers some days, and some days there are. Things continue to flow, and we will continue to make those decisions that we need to make for our district as we get more information for ourselves and make the correct decisions. During these trying and uncertain times, I don't think any one of us can promise anything to any of you, but I do know that I can promise, and I'm speaking for the board, that we do inspire and do everything we possibly can to provide the best quality education for our students and the best district possible. So, saying that, please know that we take to heart every decision we make along with administration. So these are trying times, but we do everything we can to make the best decisions to give our students a quality education and safety, along with our teachers, administration, staff, bus drivers, everyone. So I want you to take that to heart, what I'm saying as well, and I think I can speak for our board members, the rest of the board members and our superintendent when I say that. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Mr. Carswell?
Yes, sir. A couple of things. We're streaming tonight live on the website. We will not be streaming live after tonight until we get the proper equipment, which may be a few months. Next month in August, we will start meeting back like this unless the executive order comes from the governor again, which I don't anticipate, but it might. So from now on, board meetings will be the second and fourth Tuesday of the month here in this auditorium. But I would like to throw out that we might have the board meeting on August 25th at Columbia High School and have a ribbon cutting ceremony for the new, and get a tour of the new space out there. So I'll get with Don and advertise it with Ms. Logan to make sure we do it correctly. But if the board is okay with that, having August 25th board meeting at Columbia High in their auditorium at 6 o'clock. We'll pursue that, and we'll get more information out to you. Just wanted to point that out. The second thing is, if we didn't have enough on our plate, this is what woke me up this morning when I turned on the news. There's a tropical depression storm out in the Atlantic that's going to be hitting Florida. It looks like sometime Sunday morning. Right now, it's just going to be a lot of rain, so there's no reason to push the panic or get all crazy, but we are that time of year. So, you know, I'm pretty sure that 2020, with everything that's gone on so far, it will be probably pretty appropriate if we have a storm sit on top of us for a few months and rain, but hopefully not. But anyway, I just want everybody to be aware that we are monitoring in that, and we're going to be keeping an eye out to make sure we make any decisions that we need to make for the district and things that are going on. Other than that, thank you for everything. I would say this too, we do have great principals. They're here tonight. They haven't been necessarily involved in our Zoom meeting. There's some here tonight, but we don't need to lose sight of the fact that they're trying to bargain, and they want teachers because they want their schools to be the best they can possibly be. And so they're having to listen to what we're saying about the budget, and they're having to balance a lot of stuff on their plate. But I did want to give a shout out to our principals and to say that they're doing an awesome job, fantastic job in leading their school. And they're leading their school not in panic, but they're leading their school in peace. And I think that's a key thought process to how you lead when we're working through this process. So just a shout out to our principals, and just thank y'all for tonight. Good seeing everybody. Tomorrow night, Thursday night, Friday night, and Saturday night. So see y'all then.
Yeah, a lot of busy times coming up. Lex, just on a comment real quick on, you mentioned the storm out there. I would encourage us to reach out to Department of Health about shelters, because that kind of changes with the COVID environment. So I don't know if we've had that discussion yet, but since a lot of our schools are shelters, I think we need to reach out ahead of it. So I don't want to be the day before a storm's going to hit and worried about how we're going to manage that.
We'll get in touch with, well, I can't think of the guy's name out there. But,
yeah, I know.
The guy. Anyway, but West Side would be our main school because it is the county's health
critical need shelter.
Critical need shelter.
Yeah.
So yes, we'll do that tomorrow.
All right. Madam Attorney, I can't see you through the people there, but do you have anything?
I do not, thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Lex reminded everybody about the next few nights. So we got CHS Baccalaureate tomorrow night, Fort White Baccalaureate Thursday night, Fort White High School graduation Friday night, and CHS graduation on Saturday. So,
And Adult Ed next Tuesday.
and Adult Ed next Tuesday. Thank you. I didn't have that one down.
Just getting it all out there while we're out
Yeah.
there.
Let's just get them all on here.
Yeah.
Whew, a lot on everybody's minds, I know. Not great times going on right now, but I will tell you this, it's not all bad. Folks, I have to meet with our staff at the hospital all the time, and we're dealing with a lot of stuff there, I'll tell you. But we need to look on the good side of things, folks. There's a lot of good going on. It's just hard to remember it sometimes. It's actually good we're getting kids back in school, They need that environment. They need to be around the other kids and do those good things. We need to do it safely, and I know the superintendent's working on ways of assuring that that'll happen. But these are good things, I hated the end of the year last year. Last night, I actually got to go to the Student Government Association at CHS's induction ceremony for their new group of leaders there, and my daughter happened to be an exiting one who graduated this year, and Miss Hunter, bless her heart, she's a wonderful woman, but she got up there and apologized. Apologized to those kids for all they've lost. It's not her fault.
Right.
It's nobody in this room's fault. It's not Mr. Carswell's fault. It happened, and it's tough. And yeah, we've dealt with it. Have we dealt with it perfectly? Probably not. Find someplace that has. If they have, I want to know about it, because nobody's dealt with it perfect, but everybody's dealt with it the best they could. Everybody's made the best decision for our kids, for our staff, for everybody in this community. Might not always agree on what that decision is, but I promise you, we're not making it because we just want to. We're making it because that's based on current information and based on everything we know, that's the best decision we can make. So I believe this board is going to continue that focus, and we're going to continue to, like our mission statement says up here, we above all else, we're committed to the creation of a safe and understanding environment for all students and staff while providing a world-class education. That's what we got to live by. That's our mission statement. So I can assure you when we meet next time, we'll be discussing some things that may be contentious, but at the same time, the decisions will be made to keep our kids and our staff safe, whatever that is. So I don't think I have anything else, so I'm going to call this meeting adjourned.